Welcome back to another special edition of Cape Ann Today. Heather and I are joined by Gloucester Mayor Greg Verga, who's decided to check in with us again, and we're very thankful for that. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Kory and Heather.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Okay, so there was a big announcement last week as the city's starting to allocate the funding from ARPA. Do you want to just touch base on that for a little bit?
Sure. So just to give people, jot this down, ARPA, arpa.gloucester-ma.gov. They can take a look at all the documents. So last, I guess it was early summer, late spring, I put together a listening group to virtually go around the city and solicit ideas from people of how they would like the $23 million that the city got from ARPA should be spent. And so we got a wide range of ideas from all different categories. As I said, they can find the details at that site. But we went through it, my administration, and we decided that the one thing I've been talking about from day one was a big chunk was going to go to the secondary treatment plant for our sewer system. Gloucester's been on a waiver for decades, and we're one of only two communities, I believe, in the country that does not have secondary treatment. So basically, the music was musical chairs. The music stopped, and there was no way for me to sit down as mayor. All of my predecessors were able to just kick the can down the road, which who knows, maybe I'd have done the same thing if I had the opportunity. But we have to make the upgrades. We're looking at a possible regional approach with Rockport, Essex, Manchester. But that's, in the end, we have to move forward. So from day one, I said a big chunk of ARPA was going to go to that. And we have indeed plugged in 10 million of the 23 million is going to go to the sewer plant upgrades. 3 million more, we've programmed it towards road repairs. One of the biggest recurring themes I heard when I was knocking on doors, making phone calls during the campaign last year was roads conditions. And, whether it was first, second, or third on people's list of priorities, it seemed to be the one that happened over and over, no matter who I was talking to. So earlier in the year, prior to this fiscal year, I had backfilled the road repair budget with an extra $300,000 to close out by June 30th. And then when we did the new budget, we upped that road repair budget from $60,000 to $350,000. Now we're plugging in another $3 million. And road work is being done all over the city as we speak. We've got areas of Washington Street, Eastern Ave, East Main Street, Perkins and Green Street, Marina Drive, Leslie O. Johnson Road, and the list goes on and on. So we're trying to do a lot of work on streets and sidewalks. If we had $40 million, we could probably take care of everything, but we have this one-time opportunity to plug in a big chunk and try to hit as many as we can. So that's the first $13 million of the ARPA. The remaining $10 million, we're still looking at the report, the feedback we got from the public that also includes suggestions from within, the health department, community development, how we can use the money for city needs in other areas. But some of the categories we're going to be looking at is housing, economic development, public health, community initiatives, parks and open space, arts and culture, and then general government and revenue recovery. So we're looking at it carefully. As people go to that site and look at the list, arpa.gloucester-ma.gov, they'll notice there's not a lot of detail on most of the suggestions. Like some people were saying, you should do this, but no dollar amount plugged in. So we're most likely going to back to some of our nonprofit partners that already applied. We're not reopening this, but the ones who've already put in suggestions that were kind of vague and say, we need something a little more specific, because that $10 million, we're going to have to total $23 million. We're going to have to track, because Uncle Sam and the bean counters with the visors and they're going to be making sure that we spent it appropriately, because there are a lot of strings attached to government money. So we have to make sure that whatever we are able to distribute to our nonprofit partners and other community organizations, that it's trackable and allowable, because we're not going to give the money if we know right off the top it's not an allowable use of ARPA. So that's what we're trying to do. I mean, we're trying to build on what we've done as far as the economic development, the work that's been done locally. Before I got here, I've got to give credit where credit is due. The city was already working on the local rapid recovery program. That's a state program. Two of the things that have come out of that were the new signs for storefronts, and the pop-up shop. And we just had the ribbon cutting for season 2 of the pop-ups down on Main Street in the old Cameron's location. I was actually the first customer at one of the stores, and I got a new guitar strap.
Of course.
Made from an old seatbelt,
Yeah.
repurposed. So I would urge people to stop down there. You can't miss it. It's the action building with the affordable housing and the huge gold lobster mural on the side. So those are, some of the things that we're trying to do is economic development is the key to keep the city moving forward. So that's where we are with ARPA. So stay tuned. It's not going to be like a fast process. Well, we have limitations. We have to have it allocated by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. But we're going to take the next several weeks to look at things critically and come out with more announcements based on the categories as we head to the end of the year.
Gotcha.
So this is a super general question, Mayor, but where does the wastewater treatment program stand at this point? Like, you have $10 million that the city can now put towards it, but where does that go, and what's happening in that arena?
Right. So there's already some work done to do some engineering and some Bruce Tarr and Margaret Ferrante were able to get us, Senator Tarr and Rep Ferrante were able to get us, I believe it was 150,000 to do a feasibility study to look at the how realistic it is to do a regional approach. I mean, because I mentioned on your show before, our friends in Brockport are in need of some upgrades. Our friends in Manchester are in much more serious needs of upgrades for theirs. Essex is tied to us exclusively. They don't have their own plan. So if we are able to do something as a regional approach, and that allows us to get additional funds from the state's portion of the ARPA money or other pools of money that we might not necessarily be able to get if we go it alone. And if in the end it's the best deal for Gloucester to go that way, then we'll happily go that way. But ultimately, my priority is for the residents, taxpayers, ratepayers of Gloucester. So if we have to go alone, we will. Well,
So I
alone.
guess that's what I was asking, is what are the next steps? And the next steps are the feasibility study. Is that right?
Feasibility, right, exactly. So I was at a Greater Chamber of Commerce meeting in Ipswich last Friday, and Greg Federspell from Town Administrator of Manchester and Brendan Zabricki, the Town Administrator in Essex, were there at Rockport. Mitch Vieira wasn't able to make it, but we sort of kicked it around again. So we're all on the same page that these are the next steps. So we're looking to put together a task force, whatever kind of name you want to give it, with representatives from the 4 communities to see if this is something we can do.
Great.
And I mean, it's in the best interest of all of us beyond Cape Ann. Clean water is a clean environment is a kind of an important thing.
Interesting. So, Mayor Verga, we also spoke before we went on air about some big announcements via school committee last night. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So these things have been in a topic of conversation for a long time. Well, let's start with one that was not as long, but it's been pretty talked about a lot in recent weeks, and that's the adjustment of the school zones. In the old days, we called it redistricting, but if you looked at the map, I would urge people to go to the Gloucester Schools website and find our packet from this most recent meeting, and you'll see the map of Gloucester with the current school zones versus the proposed school zones, which we actually voted for unanimously last night. And little history lesson, and I've said this at a couple of school committee meetings. When I was on the school committee back in 2007-ish, when we ultimately closed Fuller School, we didn't bite the bullet and do a redistricting citywide. Instead, what we did is the Fuller kids, we just districted to where they fit. So what you ended up with is kids in the Gloucester Ave area bypassing Beaman to get to Plum Cove. So fast forward 15 years or so, and it's really been a bit confusing. So if you look at the current distribution, it's just like these little circles of colors for the different schools that just kind of make no sense. Now the new one is just clear delineated blocks, mostly West Parish, obviously on the mainland, and the other 3 schools divided, because we're also looking at the combination of East, Gloucester, and Vets. So those are now, starting next year, will be the zones. So it's like a 5-year phase-in. So if your child is in kindergarten now, kindergarten now, they can finish their school career through 5th grade at the school they're currently at. But if your kid goes to kindergarten next year, when they reach 5th grade, it's going to be a space available. And if your street is now in a different school zone, it'll be based on space availability for intra-district school choice. So it was not a fun thing to do. We knew that some people would be affected, but my concern was I didn't want another school committee 2, 4, 6 years from now looking back saying, oh God, we have to tackle this. They should have done it then. Bite the bullet now, especially now we have the new school coming online by next September. It seemed like a logical time to do it. So I have the other news, but if you have questions about zoning, I'm happy to answer that.
No.
Schools,
Well,
okay.
all I can think of is bus routes. Does that make bus routes crazy for the next couple of years?
For the next couple of years, we feel the school administration feels that we've got it covered. In the conversations we had with the superintendent, because right now when you have intra-district school choice, you're responsible for your own transportation. So if you live in the where I grew up on Perkins Street and you choose to send your kid to not to Veterans when Veterans was active, and go instead to West Parish or Plum Cove, you're on your own. So we feel that with these new the new lines, we are able to, for the next few years, have the busing cover it. So that's where we stand for zones. I know it's going to be painful for some people, not now, but definitely in 5 years from now. But that's 5 years they can plan ahead and decide how they want it to go. Intra-district school choice priority is given to kids who have siblings in the school. So there is that little plus.
Mm.
So the other big news we did last night, again, didn't vote unanimously. We voted on the name of the new school that's built on the vet site. That is the school that it combines the vet school, Veterans Memorial School, and East Gloucester Elementary School into one building. So cut right to the chase, the name selected was East Vets Elementary School. There were 4 finalists. What we did is we each got index cards. We wrote our preference 1 through 4. We handed them off to our recording secretary, and she calculated them, assigned points to them. East Vets came out top with 25 points, and Seaside Elementary came in second with 18 points. So after some discussion, it was a 4-3 vote. But after the vote was taken, everybody knows that they are rallying around the new name. There was actually a photo taken with the principal and holding out a sign. The kids had made long banners, handmade, of the 4 names. So they took a shot of the new name. So we're looking forward to it. It was a very controversial, not that decision, but the whole thing around the school. As you know, we had a lawsuit that just got settled, basically thrown out by the Supreme District Court last week or a week and a half ago, and we finally prevailed in the suit that was related to Meadows Field. So we are now able to get reimbursement from the MSBA, which was sort of on hold until that lawsuit was settled. So, I hope that this goes a long way, the new name, by maintaining the vet's name in there to sort of heal some of the wounds. I mean, I had said openly at the meeting that had I been on the school committee when the decisions were being made a couple of years back, I would have voted to make it Meadows Elementary School. But that being said, the decision was made at that time. It will not be named after a person. And the whole concept of a naming committee was put together, which featured kids currently from East Gloucester and Vets, as well as people in O'Malley and high school who went to those 2 schools. And they came up with a list of names based on input from the public, came down to a list of 10, reduced it to a list of 4, and the rest is history.
And the ball field is still named after Meadows, right?
Well, the ball field, that's the other issue. The ball field is gone. The ball field was eliminated.
The playground?
There'll be a playground. Let's address the ball field.
Yeah, sorry.
So part of the deal was the ball field would be shifted to Green Street. And we've had some, it hadn't been moving along. I got here and realized that there was some negotiations that had to be made with Sam Park and Gloucester Crossing. We're closing in on that, so we should be able to begin construction on the new field over at Green Street, which is the replacement for the Meadows field. There is still the the stone with the plaque on it for private Manos at the site for the vet school. So that will remain. The other thing that was part of the deal was when they close East Gloucester School at the end of this school year, we can begin the process to tear that down. And that is slated to be open space, sort of the trade-off for what was lost down there. But I mean, I think we have to recognize that it's a loss of open space downtown being replaced out in East Gloucester. And so, you know, when I was not that long ago, 10, 15 years ago, we had Fuller School Fields as a downtown facility, Vets Playground and Field as a facility, and Green Street Playground. Now we're left with Green Street. You know, among others, there's the Oval and there's Burnham's, but I'm just saying there's a net loss of 2 in the inner city. And unfortunately, where I am today, I can't rewrite history.
Well, I guess the next step too with East Vets is figuring out what the school moniker is going to be now.
Yeah, that's well, they were saying EV, but it's actually East Vets Elementary, so it's Eve. I don't know. So I'm sure that some folks on the PTO are you know, jotting down concepts for swag and things like that. But
yeah,
our job was to vote the name. Their job is to come up with some concepts.
very well.
Well, we have one more question, and that is regarding like leaving all these sort of grand subjects behind. Mattresses. There's an announcement about mattresses, Mayor. You want to go into that for us?
Yes. So this is from the Mass Department of Environmental Protection. So basically, until November 1st, you're able to get a $10 bulk sticker and put it on your mattress and your box spring. They're considered a set, and it gets picked up with your regular trash. Now they're supposed to be recycled, and this whole procedure that people need to go through. I'm not the expert on it. This all just sort of hit out of nowhere. But if you have a mattress and or box spring, before November 1st, get it out with your trash, because it gets a little more complicated after that. You know, the goal is try to recycle some of these materials instead of ending up in landfills or incineration. But it also, part of the ban is on textiles. So you're not supposed to throw clothes away either. So I would urge people to take a look at, there's some information on the city's website and on the DPW Facebook page, but the clocks are ticking. You've got till the 1st to get rid of it. Otherwise, you have to get a special sticker and a $10 bag. Sorry, I think it's a $40 sticker and a special bag. I'm just going to see. Yeah, community members are reminded that mattresses and textiles cannot be recycled through the household recycling bins. They must be given to organizations that specialize in reselling them secondhand or repurposing them for other purposes. The goal is that there'll be a bin at the DPW, but you still have to pay the fee to drop it off.
All right.
Interesting stuff. Always busy, Greg. We appreciate your time, and we'll check in with you before the holidays. I'm sure there's going to be a whole other laundry list of things to go over then.
Yeah, and so I'll give a plug for another 1623 Studios production, which is Music with the Mayor. We've talked about before, but Tyler and his gang have been doing a great job with 4 or 5 cameras in here in the office. We have 2 shows in the can. I think he's wrapping up the editing on the Alan Estes show that should be out in the next week or so. We have another one we just recorded with Kory from Rockport. And tomorrow I have Annette Dion coming in. And then next week we have the whole band, Surnames, to be upstairs in the auditorium. So we're going to have shows lined up for the next 3 or 4 months. So they can check it out on your Facebook page or on your YouTube channel. So
Great.
Very
Thank
cool.
you so much. Yeah.
you guys.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.